Hey everybody, welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I am Jeff Rubin, and today I am chatting with David Michael Latt, who as the co-founder of the movie studio The Asylum has produced such films as Airplane vs. Volcano, Bikini Spring Break, Nazis at the Center of the Earth, Titanic 2, Abe Lincoln vs. Zombies, Transmorphers Fall of Man, Super Croc, and of course a little film series called Sharknado. Please, a big Jeff Rubin welcome for David Michael Latt. Hey, David.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm great. I'm very excited to be talking to you. That was actually a pretty abridged list of your work as a producer. According to IMDb, you have made nearly 200 movies. What are the best titles that I left out of my introduction there?
Oh, Lord. I didn't know this was being a test. You didn't tell me this was being a test.
I have a lot of questions.
Hansel versus Gretel, Age of the Hobbit. Boy, oh boy. Hold your breath. 500-mile-an-hour storm. I don't know. It goes on forever. It's like a bad dream I can't wake up from. I don't know. It's crazy looking back at my life.
So even if you haven't seen some of these movies, you probably get a sense, maybe a little bit, of what some of them at least feel like, if just from hearing the titles. So I'm very excited to ask you, what kind of movies did you grow up watching? What were you into when you were growing up?
Well, I'd love to say that I was a student of B movies and, fans of Roger Corman and Samuel Arcon, but I'd be lying. I was a blockbuster kid. I, grew up on Jaws and Star Wars and E.T. and, these big, these huge movies that dominated the box office, and that's what got me, more excited than anything else. And it was really just, kind of the inaccessibility of making these $100 million movies that got me into the position that I'm in now, which is, making these genre films. And, it was something that, as an addict, like a film addict, I mean, film is my drug. You just want to keep, making more and producing more and more and more and more and more. So at a certain point, you don't necessarily, you look back and you go, wow, these are the films that I make. And it's exciting. It's wonderful. I truly enjoy what I do, and making the genre films, but it definitely was an acquired taste for me. It wasn't something that I was excited about, as a child. Because as a child, I wanted to make movies. I mean, this is something I always wanted to do, and I feel very fortunate to be able to do it.
When did you start making movies? Were you the kind of kid that had a camcorder in your backyard? Did you go to film school?
Yes. I had, I'm so old that I had a Super 8 camera. And, my two partners basically had the same kind of upbringing. They lived in Michigan. I lived in Los Angeles. But, I had a Super 8 camera and made short films at the age of 8, 9. And then when I saw Star Wars, it kind of changed my life in thinking that I could actually make a living out of this. And it was just exciting from that point forward because I couldn't wait to start my life as a filmmaker.
So you mentioned this. You're one of 3 co-founders of The Asylum, right?
Yes.
How did you meet the other 2, and how did you guys decide to start this thing?
Well, David Romali and I met in college. We happened to have gone to different colleges. But a friend of his went from CSUN, Cal State Northridge, to Loyola Marymount University, which is where I was going, and he was my roommate, and said, boy, Latt, you want to direct, and my friend from CSUN, he really wants to produce. You guys should get together. And that was 25 years ago. We met each other and became friends first, and it's true. He produced the first film that I directed. And we graduated college, and from there we made a film every other year until we both got fired within the same month at the 2 different day jobs that we had.
What were you doing for your day job?
Well, I was working for a company called Shumer Multimedia. I was the head of production. VP of production. I don't even know what that title is anymore. We were doing very innovative work on a new medium called CDs. And it was interactive training for Fortune 500 companies. And I was let go because I was having kind of moonlighting, making movies on the side and not really focused on my work. David O'Malley was working over at Village Roadshow, and they acquired, Warner Brothers acquired Village Roadshow and basically dissolved his department, which was Distribution International. And so he was let go. And so at that time we said, you know what, let's jump into this thing. Let's make movies together. You know, we both got fired, and so let's do this. And he was with someone at Village Roadshow. My name is Sherry Strain, and the three of us started the Asylum. We worked out of David's apartment for the first 4 years, brown bagging it, and just kind of doing whatever we could to make ends meet. And that kind of grew from there, and here we are today after we have TV series and Sharknado and making all these movies, and we have about 45 employees, and that doesn't even include the production side of things, which is 50 to 100 every month. It's a machine. It's ginormous and couldn't fit in his apartment.
And you said that you wanted to direct, but I know now looking at your IMDb profile that it seems like you've sort of become more of a producer. Is that right?
Well, I've always done both. My passion was directing, but I've always been a producer. You know, all the short films I made as a child, you know, all the way up into college, and the things I did as an adult, I was always putting everything together. But yeah, it was a big, you know, come to Jesus moment when I look back and go, wow, I'm not really directing, I'm producing. You know, who am I? And is this really what I want in my life? Because I was really engaged in the production part of it. And you know, at this company, I am in charge of all production. So I am literally doing producing 24/7. We make 2 to 3 films every month. I mean, I am just head deep into everything here on the production side. So, but I came to terms with how I am as in my professional life. And again, I love what I do. So I found a great deal of enjoyment. It was just difficult to not call myself a director. You know, even when I was producing a lot more, I still kept going, oh, I'm a director. And then after a couple of years of not directing, it's like, you're really not a director. you're kind of a producer. Or now, as I tell people, I'm a filmmaker. You know, and that kind of covers everything.
I guess what a producer does is different depending on the producer, depending on the film and the movie studio. But what do you as a producer do? Because, you know, I think people know what actors do, what writers do, what directors do, and they have classes for all those things. There's such a thing as a writing class or an acting class, but I don't think you can go to school for producing. I think you just got to figure it out. Is that right?
No, you can certainly go and you know, and go to school and learn how to produce a film. I mean, that's not too far off. There are a lot of great technical schools and even just general schools like USC that definitely will teach you how to make a movie.
So what does a producer do then?
Well, as you said, there's a lot of different hats that you could wear as a producer. For me, what I do is I kind of shepherd the project from the get-go. Make sure that the script is being produced in a way that my partners can sell it. Because we, as a studio, we handle sales as well. And so I have to make sure that if it's a horror film, that you have horror elements to it. If it's a Sharknado film, there's sharks in the film, because you never know. The writers have very artistic, you know, everyone's creative and everyone has a creative voice, and you just want to make sure that you're going to produce what is sellable and what can go out into the marketplace and find an audience. So my biggest role is to kind of make sure that those elements are there. And then I'll put together the core team, which means I'll hire the director, I'll hire the on-set producer called a line producer or a unit production manager, and I'll make decisions on the actors in the film. After that, really, and the cinematographer. After that, really, the production teams will produce the film. It'll be they'll run it themselves. But I'll watch the dailies to make sure that the film matches the script that we're shooting. I'll see all the dailies that they're shooting for the day. I'll look at the edits as they come in. I'll make sure that on a daily basis that we're not going over budget, that we are shooting all the scenes we need to shoot. But for the most part, I'm at a desk screaming on the phone or sending nasty emails. And to that end, I try to get on set. My first choice to be on the set. I like that atmosphere. I really enjoy the people that we hire. So it's fun energy. But I rarely get to the set now. I mean, this is a be careful what you wish for scenario.
Well, I actually want to ask basically about every single step of that process. Let's start from the top, from that get-go. You mentioned that writers are working on... I mean, where does Airplane vs. Volcano even come from? Are these internally generated? Are writers pitching you these ideas?
Well, one of the fun little facts about the Asylum is that we've never lost money on a film. And it's not a difficult math problem to figure out as to why that's the case. It happens because most of our ideas, not all, but most of our ideas come from our buyers. Like I said before, we have direct relationships with our buyers internationally, domestically. And so they tell us what to make. They know what their audience wants. And so if they come to us and they say they wanted an airplane that is in conflict with a natural disaster like a volcano, they're going to come up with all that stuff. Maybe the one-liner or the log line. We'll then turn around. We have a whole development team, and led by Michael Latt, and he will find the writers to kind of pitch all those stories and find the best story that fits what the buyer wants. And once we kind of hone that in, usually the writer of that pitch will write the script, and from the script we produce the movie. It's very rare that we will ever take an outside pitch and make that, because that's too difficult. And it's very rare that we'll go in co-production with somebody, because we're just not that kind of company.
Can you school me on the movie business for a second? What exactly is a buyer? Who are they buying for? Who are they representing?
Right. So the buyers are really how my partners interact with the company and what they do. So there are about 10 markets in the world on a yearly basis. Cannes Film Festival, AFM, NAFT. These are conventions where, we'll go in and we'll sell our wares to a distributor in that country. So Germany will come in, and they're a buyer, and they're going to buy for their territory, Germany, and they're going to buy for certain types of markets on that territory, VOD, television, theatrical, DVD. Sometimes they handle everything. Sometimes it's very compartmentalized. They handle only specific things, and we would sell the film to Germany, to that buyer. And so the buyer could also turn around and go, look, we'll give you more money if you make a giant shark fighting a giant octopus.
Seems like buyer is the job I want. Buyer is the job I want.
It's a favorite job.
Describe for me the title brainstorming process, like because it seems, how much of the idea, how important is the title? My guess is very important. And I will say that I'm not a marketing guy, and the guy to talk to is my partner, David Romawi, and he is the marketing guy. He's the one who titles our titles, and he's the one who handles all the posters and the mockbusters and everything else. I also, I want to kind of continue with the story of the founding partners. Please.
Sherry ended up leaving the company a few years into the development of the company, because we were making a film a month. We were very into genre films. She was very into art house films, and kind of just, it didn't mix very well. So she ended up leaving after about 6 or 7 years. And we brought in a third partner, a man named Paul Bales. He had worked over at SAG for 10 years, one of their executives. And he is an old friend of David O'Malley's from Michigan, childhood friend. And I've known him for 20 years, and he's been with the company now for well over 10 years. But so he handles a lot of stuff too. His function's mostly in business administration, handling contracts, money, that kind of thing.
How much of the Asylum income is coming from foreign territories versus the United States?
It used to be an easy answer, 50-50. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I'm just looking
right
for a
now.
Ballpark. I'm just trying to get a sense of it. Even 50-50 is like helpful, just give me an anchor to start thinking about it.
But I don't know if that's necessarily true right now, because the market, the world has changed. It changes on such an aggressive level Things that places that we could sell our films to a year ago no longer exist, or they're buying them for a fraction of the cost. I mean, it's a very difficult existence to make movies and to sell movies.
You use the phrase mockbuster. Can you explain exactly what a mockbuster is?
Sure. Well, we use the word mockbuster to describe a film that takes the similarities of a blockbuster film from the studios that's being released. So when a studio releases Transformers, we release Transmorphers. Different story, different plot, different everything, but the marketing-wise, it kind of is similar. The studios do this, and when they do this, it's called drafting. And they, do it a little more subtly. We are much more obnoxious, and we're much more aggressive about it. So we call it mockbusting, and we're pretty shameless in how we market these things. But they're very different content, and it's where no one's trying to dupe anybody. We've definitely gotten that criticism before, but I could tell you that no one returned our films more times than anyone else. When Blockbuster existed or Hollywood Video existed, it's a silly thing that we're trying to copy because the model would break down if you were trying to pirate. If it's not the same thing as pirating, it's or even copying. It's just it's a bizarre kind of mass problem. But we do mockbusters, and we do maybe like 20% of our content is mockbusting. When you look at something, how much inspiration are you taking from the original movies? Is it just like there's giant robots and that's it, and that's where? Well, it's one of those things where there's an appetite from the audience to want to exploit that genre, which is why the studios do what's drafting. When the Da Vinci Code came out, you can go to any kind of big box store, and I remember going and seeing a whole section of the real Da Vinci Code, the real Da Vinci, the behind the scenes, the Dan Brown story, all this content that other studios were producing because people had an interest in that topic. And so when we came out with ours, Da Vinci Treasure, it just kind of feeds into the interest. When people, the Transmorphers versus Transformers, people are interested in robots that transform, and that's really what we're kind of offering is another option rather than the studio option. But outside of that, they're different in different story, different. We don't ever see a studio script or read a one line or anything. I mean, this is our own beast because our buyers want something similar because their audience demands it. Who is the intended audience for a movie like Transmorphers? Oh, this guy was in Idaho lives with his parents. Who's that audience? Someone who is going to watch who wants to watch robots transforming. If that's interesting to those people, it's interesting to me. I liked it. So it's just someone who wants to see more transforming robots. Transformers has potentially ignited an interest in transforming robots. You're providing another option that's out there. That's correct. When do you start to budget these movies? Like, at what stage is it at the idea? When you just hear Croc, when you just hear Super Croc. I'm sorry, not Super Croc. What is it? No, it is Super Croc. Excuse me. When you hear Super Croc, do you know that's a $2 million movie, or do you need to see the script? How does that work? We work backwards on everything. We work backwards with the when it's due to know how we're going to make it, when we're going to make it, and we work backwards with a budget. And the reason why we don't lose any money is because if we know in the world we're going to make $500,000 on the show, well, we better make the film for about $250,000, or $300,000, because we have an overhead and we're cash flow. We don't have investors, which means that dollars coming in, any kind of profit goes into feeding the beast of employees and their salaries and pension, health insurance, overhead, all that stuff. So we have to make sure that we produce enough and make enough margin in order to cover those expenses that we have internally in the studio. So it's never a guessing game of, Super Croc, let's make it for $2 million. It's never like that. It's, okay, well, in the world, we're going to make $500,000. So we can't make it any more than $300,000, or we're screwed.
Is the Super Croc itself kind of the highest level budget item to worry about? Once you have that budget, you're like, all right, well, now how many shots of the Super Croc can we afford? Is that the next thing you're working backwards through?
Everything is in-house. All the visual effects, all the post, all the editorial, everything. Our production's in-house. We don't farm anything out, so we can control those costs. We know what we're spending. So we have a certain limit of what our teams can do, and we don't go past those limits. At least we try not to. So if we have a certain budget, we can't go more than how many days of production. If we have a certain budget, we can't go more than a certain amount of visual effects because we don't have the time to produce that. There's a lot of challenges, and we tax each department pretty severely with their time and energies and stuff. It's an intense existence here.
Has there ever been a film for you guys that went over budget that was just a disaster and didn't finish, or all the movies have made money and that's the answer? All
the movies have made money, that's the answer, because we have a margin. But, every show has its own dramas, and every show has its challenges. I mean, I can't think of, with over 200 movies, any show going smoothly.
Right.
But
yeah, that's funny.
That's part of it. My joke has always been, I'll keep making movies until I get it right. Because it feels that way. Because every single time you feel like you fix the problem, the next show comes along and something blindsides you. Go, oh, yeah, that sucks. Let's figure that one out now. And you just figure it out. I mean, the one thing making all these movies is you kind of realize no matter what the significant dramas there are, you could always get around them and figure it out. And it may take some extra brain power, and you might miss a couple lunches, but ultimately things get done. I don't know how they get done most of the time, but they get done.
All right, so we've got our script, we've got our budget, the buyers are in, we're ready to go. What's the next step?
Well, once we approve the budget and the script, it's now you hire a line producer.
And what's a line producer do?
So, a line producer is on the ground commander, someone who is, usually what my job would be, is to basically be there every day on the set, make sure that everything's running smoothly, the director's getting what they need to get, the crew is happy, people aren't, miserable, and, the contracts are going fine. I mean, it's the person really just on the ground doing things. And they hire everybody. So the line producers is one of the more important hires that I need to do.
So what do you look for in a line producer, especially for a movie like Super Croc?
Someone who's a little brain dead, challenged. It's funny because you don't want the super sexy line producer who just came off of Spider-Man. And you don't want really anybody in the big budget world. And you don't want anyone in the commercial world too, because they have no idea how to make a film at the low budget end. Because usually the solutions to a lot of problems are throw money at it, or throw more time to it, and you don't have either on a low budget film. So it's a challenge. You need to find someone who really plays well in the space. There's not a lot of people out there with that kind of talent that could manage a crew, the finances, keep a level head, keep the mood decent. I mean, one of the big things is, you're working very many hours during the day. You want to make sure that everyone's happy. You don't want this to be a bad experience for anybody. And so you want to find line producers who aren't yellers and aren't being a drill sergeant, but you can still get the job done and make sure everyone is focused on the job at hand. So there's a challenge to that. But over the years, we've definitely, I think, have the best of the best, and they're really, really good at what they do. And I lean on them a lot. They have my trust, and they can make decisions on the fly and make sure it doesn't. And they have the best interest of the company and the film in their heads. They're not, doing this for, I hate to say it, artistic expressions. They're doing this because they're making sure that the show is going to be great because of the needs that I have. They work for the company. They don't work for the director. So that's one of the bigger hires. and what the line producer kind of does on the set.
What about, to go back a sec, what do you guys look for when you're hiring writers to fill out these ideas? What kind of writers are you talking to?
We're looking for writers that really can have a good sense of dialogue. They could think very quickly, and they could turn scripts around very quickly.
Right. How long does it take to write an Asylum script? Or how long do you give them to write an Asylum script?
Sometimes we give them all a year, but most of the time it's a few weeks. After you've, the longer process is really hammering out the 8-act, which is about 4 pages long, and it really, is very general yet specific of what the script is going to look like. It's in novel form and pro form, so it's one of those. Once you get that down, you're really just filling it in with dialogue in a lot of ways. So the script really doesn't take as long as you think it might. Mm-hmm. So the script is a pretty quick process. The place we get really hung up is all the rewrites. Just to make sure, because you get the first script in and there's 40 characters and 20 locations, and you have the Yugoslavian army running down the hill, and you have to go, okay, let's work backwards. Because we never tell a writer. One of the worst things for us, looking for new writers or people to come and say, "Hey, I want to write for you. I have a great script. It's really good. It's up your alley. It's a low budget film. It's 4 characters. Takes place in one room." And it's like, no, that's an Asylum movie. If anyone's ever seen an Asylum film, it never takes place in one room, and it's never 4 characters. It always has this bizarre belief that it's a big budget movie, and so there's a lot of locations and a lot of characters. But we do hit our limits. So, if it comes in with a lot of characters, too many characters, or too many locations, that's kind of the rewrite that we have to kind of go back and go, okay, no, look, we can get this one location that could double for 4 others, but, at the most, in this particular script, let's go to 10 locations, and we can afford, because the budget, 20 actors, so we have to kind of work a little bit backwards. But, when they first write the script, we never try and, hold them down to this low-budget mentality.
And the directors, where do you get a director from?
Well, they come to us. Now everyone wants to direct, and I would say about half the employees here at the Asylum have directed something here. So we get them internally. We like to, give the family that opportunity. But, we get projects from, we get directors from friends of friends, or friends we meet at parties, or people who are fans of us, and so they get the shows, and they could show they have something to what they're doing. We're doing a show now with Nick Carter for the Backstreet Boys, and he brought in a lot of resources on his end, so that made a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. I believe it's like our second film we've ever co-produced, maybe our first film. So it's an interesting dynamic there.
How did you end up working on that?
Well, he tracked us down. He's fans of the genre, of what we do. And we do have a few fans out there, and he's one of them. And he has always wanted to make a zombie horror film. And he basically came to the office to charm us. Bought everybody lunch. He's just a charming guy, and he had a project that our development person loved. We ended up not making that project, but we found something else, part of that core that worked really well. And so we exploited that and found Sci-Fi as a buyer. And we're off to the races. So, it's one of those things of it all worked out for this project, and it looks great.
It's interesting how you guys do have a variety of projects going on. I think you're probably, correct me if I'm wrong, mostly known for kind of, like you said, these genre movies, these sci-fi, horror. I mean, the name is The Asylum. You've also produced comedies, dramas. You made a Christian movie?
Well, I think your listeners would be surprised to know that we do a lot of Lifetime movies.
Forget the listeners. I'm surprised to learn that. What kind of Lifetime movies are you making? And yet, it's my favorite kind of Jeff Rubin fact, because I am my immediate reaction is surprise, and I can't believe that's happening. But then after I think about it for a second, of course you are. It makes all the sense in the world. What kind of Lifetime movies are you making?
Well, women in peril films. We made a couple of phenomenal Christmas movies that I love. You know what the filmmakers did for those shows. You know, look, the bottom line is we're horrors at the Asylum, and we love making movies, and, you know, we're not afraid of any genre. Yes, you know, look, early on we were known for just doing horror films, and then we became known for just doing mockbusters. Then we were, you know, known for doing, you know, just kind of B-movie genre films. But we've made a whole bunch of talking dog family movies. We've made Christmas movies. You talk about the religious title. That came because our buyer, Hollywood Video, wanted us to make, you know, we wanted to make disaster movies, and they basically said, look, they don't do well for us, but Christian movies do really well. And so we opened up a label called Faith Films, and we made about 10 movies under Faith Films that, you know, did marginally well. But yeah, they're Christian-based movies.
So you'll do whatever as long as someone's interested in it. I don't think there's anything wrong. I say that with no judgment in my heart.
Yes. You know, look, at the end of the day, I want to, as an audience member, watch something that's entertaining and fun. So, you know, the only criteria that I really have is that I want it to be entertaining and fun. And that could be an action film, it could be a family film, it could be a Christmas film, it could be a horror film. I love movies, I love watching movies, and so it just has to be something that's going to interest me, I hope, and an audience, I hope. I mean, I'm not the litmus test of like, well, if I like it, everyone's going to like it. But I at least want to go into it on a personal level, liking what I'm, you know, producing.
I love that you say they have to be fun, because that's what I really enjoy about your movies, too, is that they're fun, you know? Not all B-movies are necessarily fun to watch, you know? And I think your movies, no matter what's going on, like, it feels like people had fun making it. Is that right? Like, you know, obviously set is stressful, and there's pressure, and these are low-budget films, but generally, you know, especially compared to, let's say, comparable productions, is an Asylum set fun?
I hope so. I hope we're having fun. You know, we have, you know, when we started making a film a month, I said, okay, with the way that we paid people, which was really horrible back then, I said, we're going to maybe last, you know, the most we'll have are 3 films. You know, that's how long someone will last before they have to kind of move on and get a real job and get sick of, you know, the shenanigans that we put together. But we've had people work on 50, 60, 70 movies. I mean, it's just, it's always different. And it's always something, hopefully it's fun and you know, it's, and different. And yeah, it's really important to hire a crew that, look, they're not singing all day, but, you know, no one wants to be miserable at their work, and no one wants there to be drama. And so, you know, those people that have those kind of attitudes don't last very long, at least at the Asylum. I mean, for us, it's about everyone getting along and having fun and doing it, and really the joy of filmmaking. I think every, you know, person, you know, that's why we have a lot of young people on the set is, well, because we probably don't pay very well, but beyond that is, you know, they're all starting out. You know, I've said very publicly that it's like a teaching hospital, and we're teaching them how to make movies, and everyone has that kind of creative, exciting energy to the set. So yeah, I hope that everyone's having fun, and you know, hopefully people have good experiences making the movie. And I do think it shows when that happens. When people have difficulties, you can definitely see it in the dailies.
Yeah, I think you can feel that Asylum movies are generally, you know, even though they're monster movies or they're horror movies, I think they're also fun. Was there a production for you guys that was like, you know, the Cleopatra of Asylum or the Heaven's Gate of Asylum, just some production that got way out of hand and was just a total disaster for you guys?
Probably Sharknado.
Really? The first Sharknado?
You know, that had a lot of drama. That's all been documented. And the second one was better. The third one had, you know, the second one just had a lot of union problems with it, and we're still kind of fighting those elements, so it's not fun that way. And the third one kind of got sucked into that whole, you know, vortex of the unions. And so, again, it's never fun when someone from the outside comes knocking on your door going, oh, you're making millions of dollars. You owe us money. You have to, kiss the ring or else we're going to do X, Y, and Z. In this case, number 3, our tires were slashed. Trash was thrown at us. It was horrible, so a lot of stupid drama. We did a film in the Bahamas, that comes to mind, it's called Shark Week, or Bermuda, Bahamas, where we were at I guess a drug cartel's island, and we didn't know it, but they held some of the crew in cast hostage, and we had to fly them out in the middle of the night.
Oh my God, that's crazy!
We had to fly. One of our line producers' parents had a private plane company out in Texas, and we had to fly over to the location like in the middle of the night. We had to do like 5 trips. And be gone by 7 in the morning, or everyone was going to pretty much go to jail. And so, maybe one day we'll write a book of all the fun.
So,
all the crazy.
That would be an amazing book. I mean, the Roger Corman book's amazing. So, you guys, Sharknado was like was that a bigger production for you even before it hit? Because I think for most people, it sort of came out of nowhere. But for you guys, was that going into that, did you know that was going to be something big?
Oh, yeah. Sharknado was just one of our normal monster movies, and without any kind of pretense that it was going to do anything. It was just going to be a film that we put on Sci-Fi, and then we were done. And on to the next movie. So there was no nothing. There's no way to even think of it in the world that could happen. We did a film earlier called Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, and at the time I thought that would be the most publicized pop culture referenced movie that we would ever make. To be on my obituary, that would be the film. We were a Jeopardy question. It was a big deal to me. I'm like, we're not going to make anything that's going to be even remotely near that. And, now, very few people have heard of Mega Shark, but everyone's heard of Sharknado.
What was it with Sharknado? Why was it such a phenomenon? Do you think it was that title? Was it just like the marketing and the timing, or is there something in the movie itself?
Well, I think all the above. I think, it's a great title that had a great hashtag, and I think prior to that point, no one was as sophisticated with Twitter to understand that you have a title that people could all talk about at once. You're going to get a bigger conversation. So when you do hashtag Sharknado, everyone's talking about Sharknado, as opposed to Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus, where you can go hashtag Mega, hashtag Mega Shark, hashtag versus turn it.
MS versus Geo or whatever.
Right. So you're going to have 400 different conversations, and maybe talking about the same thing, maybe with the same Twitter audience, social media audience, but you'll never know it. So in this particular case, Sharknado came around, and not only was it a title that everyone can kind of like rally behind and talk about in one conversation, but you had big stars talking about it for whatever stupid reason. Why they were watching television that night, who knows? But, you have these stars that have 1 million followers, 2 million followers, and when they start saying, what's this movie about? Why am I watching this? What's going on? Even if 1% of their, followers tuned in at that particular moment, it became a thing. And it just became a thing, and here we are, and now you're interviewing me. So,
well, how big was Sharknado for your company? And I don't need to know exactly how much money you made off it, but just give me a sense of how many Super Crocs is a Sharknado worth to you?
Well, I think people would be surprised to know that Sharknado is not a cash cow and not a way to make money. Sharknado is a way to springboard the success to other projects. So, because of Sharknado, we got a TV series, Z Nation, and although that's not making money either, the hope is that it will as we go into our second season. It brought us into a whole different world of doing television series. So there are other tangible, intangible successes because of it. So no one's crying over Sharknado, but it certainly. It becomes so difficult when you negotiate with actors and everything else. It's like, well, this is Sharknado, you've made a lot of money. It's like, no, we haven't. It's still, Germany still bought Sharknado for the same amount of money as they bought Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus or Three-Headed Shark Attack. They didn't care one way or the other.
2, 3, and 4.
Same thing. In fact, worldwide, it didn't do well. It may have the perception it did well, but it didn't. But ratings-wise, and what they wanted it to do as well. So those numbers still stay the same. Germany will still spend the same amount of money. Italy will still spend the same amount of money as our other films. It doesn't necessarily generate a bigger cash cow. Maybe that's just our ineptitude of sales and filmmaking, but that's just the reality of what it is. It gets us into bigger conversations. We talk to bigger players now. We talk to, so it has this other effect that's not necessarily directly related to our bank accounts.
Right.
It gets us invited into more parties and allows us a little bit more street cred when going to Comic-Con. So,
I mean, Comic-Con street cred is beyond value, right?
That's right. I mean, it's a fun experience. I don't want to even remotely poo-poo what Sharknado is or means to the company or means to the people that produce it, because it's an amazing experience that not my contemporaries, my friends, do not get to experience, even though they've made films in this space. No one's had this kind of attention or success to a film in where we are, and again with my friends. So I don't want to say that it's been a negative or bad experience. It hasn't at all. It's not. I still drive a minivan. That helps you.
That puts it in perspective a little bit.
All right.
What is your favorite movie that you've made at the Asylum, of the 200 or so that you've produced? Do you have one that, if someone's listening to this, they're unfamiliar? Is there one where you could point to and say, this is the Asylum experience?
This isn't one of those, they're all my kids, so I love them all. I don't love all my kids. So it's just every show has some drama. There's a couple things at play here. I know all the behind the scenes stuff, so it's like, oh, that was difficult. That actor was really difficult, so the film's a little less enjoyable, or we really got screwed out of this, so it's a little less enjoyable. And then there's the other thing too, is that I probably haven't seen 70% of the movies that we produced.
You haven't seen 70% of your company's movies?
Yeah, probably looking through the posters right now. I'm like, I haven't seen it. And the reason being is not because I don't love our films, but it's because I'm producing 2 to 3 films a month. And so I am, by the time the film comes out, that was a film I made 15 films ago.
Right.
And it just gets, stuck on the stack. I've seen cuts, but it's rare that I'll see the finished product. My partner, David O'Malley, deals with the finished product. I don't. So, like I said, I've seen it in different incarnations, different edits along the way, but rarely do I see a finished product. If there's a big screening, if there's a big event thing, I'll see it. I've certainly watched all of Z Nation in that series, but I'm also a fan of the series as well. And the good news is my wife's a huge fan of the series, so we kind of have that time for ourselves as well, which is something that she doesn't really do normally. It's not something that we'll sit down and watch one of my movies. It's but Z Nation has brought us together.
Z Nation is what you're saying. I just want to be clear, right? Z Nation is the show? Just want to make sure everyone's got it. So I get that you haven't seen all the movies, but do you have one that stands out as your favorite of the ones you have seen, or the ones that you've produced? And maybe you even haven't seen the final cut, but I think you probably have a sense of what the really fun ones are. Well,
I could probably pick every single one and go, this is what's great about this film. This is what's really fun about this film. But right off the bat, off the top of my head, it would be Love at the Christmas Table, which is a Christmas movie. It's just, I think, it's a genre film too. I mean, it's a Christmas movie, it's a genre film. I mean, it hits the genre of, this romantic dramedy we did for Lifetime, and it's one of my favorites. I think Sharknado 2 is one of my favorites. Just because I've always, after that movie was made, I said, you know what? This is what an Asylum movie looks like if you have money. Because it's so, I think, well produced. It looks big. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot going on. I mean, I'm very happy with how that came out. All the way around, even with the drama associated with it. And then there's just every movie after that, which there's a lot of good and fun with it as well. If you mention the film, I go, oh yeah, that was great too. That was fun.
You're so proud of your work, and I think justifiably so. But is there anything in the Asylum filmography that you're maybe embarrassed to have produced? They all made money, so I don't think you have anything to be embarrassed about.
It's not about it's not about making money or whatever. It's about does the show hold up? Is it entertaining? Is it and I want to kind of temper I'm really proud of the work that I have done, because I'll be the first to tell you that the team really makes it what it is. I make a few phone calls, yell at a few people, and fire a few people, but for the most part, a lot of the work are the teams that put these films together. I mean, this is really it's such a group effort. The directors, the DP, and whatnot. It's it's kind of like when I watch the Z Nation TV series. I'm a fan of the show. I'm enjoying the process, and I have very little to do with it, except for give a few script notes and just respond to the dailies. But it's just so well produced up in Washington with a phenomenal showrunner. I can sit back and go, I'm really, it's not me. It's these guys that are doing it, that are making it happen. So. I definitely I get to have the producer credit, but which is the big credit. But it's if you just look a little bit below the surface, you notice that it's probably by name only at this point.
Well, so maybe you're not, you're tempering your pride in the movies, but you're obviously, and I think again justifiably, so extremely proud in this crew you've put together and this family you've built there,
yes.
And these people that are making the movies. So I'm going to push a little harder on the pride thing and say that you are indeed proud of your work there.
I'm proud of. I'm very proud of the work that these guys do. I mean, it's just no one phones it in. Everyone is there, very present with what's going on, and they always try to give the best they can give. So it's it's and that is live. Some of these guys are older than me, but it's like having kids, and I have a bunch of them. When you see that they do such good work, and you're like, wow, that's what did I do? I was just a dad, but they did all these accomplishments, and that's kind of the way it is kind of here. It's like everyone is working at such a high level and a creative level and a great level. It's fun when they put it together, and these shows just are fun to watch.
With all of that in mind, is there anything in the filmography that you're embarrassed by? It is not a condemnation of the people that worked on it. It's just, sometimes you make 3 movies a month. Maybe they're not all perfect.
Every movie. Totally embarrassed.
So you are simultaneously proud and embarrassed of every one of the movies.
Absolutely. It's like, because people call you on the mistakes. You're like, yeah, I guess you're right. Or the effects aren't so shiny and great on that show. Yeah, I get it. Snakes in the Train, sure, you could, kick them in the ass on. And, Street Racer, our Western Six Guns. Yeah, there are problems with them. But it's, I think there's always something that I can always pull from it going, it's a fun watch,
Yeah.
It may not be for everybody, and my partner certainly has his opinions on what's a better film, and than what I think. But it's all subjective.
What is the most expensive movie you guys have made? Non-Sharknado division.
Oh, I was going to say, it's like Sharknado. That's nothing goes near Sharknado.
How big? How big is the budget for Sharknado, especially Sharknado 2 and 3 and 4, compared to your other movies?
Probably like 3-4 times.
That's not insane. It's bigger, but it's not like 10 times.
It's bigger because it's our money. Again, it's not investor money. So it's in a lot of ways you're actually juggling with people's lives, because everyone that's been employed here, you're like, okay, we're going to gamble, put all the money now into this one movie, and hopefully it's going to hit. And if not, we're all going to be in the soup kitchen line together, but it could fail miserably.
Man,
that's the problem.
That does sound. Obviously that sounds extremely stressful, and I don't envy that pressure. But it does sound, going back to the beginning, like a kid who grew up loving Star Wars and wanted to make movies. It seems like such an awesome, wonderful job for someone who's such a fan of movies to look at the slate and kind of look at the market and decide what's worth going for and what's not. That is it as fun as it sounds?
Yes, it's absolutely as fun as it sounds. It's I am the luckiest person around. I mean, I wish my focus was curing cancer. That would be very good in with my family, but it's not. I'm making movies, so I have to kind of temper it with the reality. But it's, you know, to be able to do what you love to do, I realize it's a very, very rare life that I live. And who knows, it could all fall apart tomorrow. But for now, and for the last 20 years, it's been going pretty well.
Yeah, even if it fell apart tomorrow, which I don't think it's going to, you had a pretty good run.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see, if you look at your filmography and you look at the posters, how the company has moved forward, and you're not doing the same things you were doing in year 1 or year 10. Do you see, I mean, are you guys just movie to movie here, or do you see a path that you're going towards, an eventual goal?
The company changes a lot. You know, we weren't doing TV series a year ago, and now we're kind of focusing more on doing as many TV series as we can, because the one-off movies aren't performing where we need them to perform in order to sustain the studio. So, you know, a year from now, hopefully we'll have a couple more TV series to talk about, in addition to Sharknado 4, 5, 6, and 7, and everything else. But, you know, we have to be nimble, and we have to change with, you know, what the market wants. Otherwise, we would die. And
right.
And my partners have been very, very good about making sure that we are nimble and we do change accordingly.
I love what you guys do. I grew up with movies like this, and I used to love going to Blockbuster, because choosing a movie to me was this, I liked going to Blockbuster more than I liked watching the movie, you know? And
Yeah.
I would go through the horror and the sci-fi aisle, and you see all these movies that I can still picture the poster and the title, even though I didn't see them. You know,
Yep.
so these movies are very near and dear to my heart, and I've always enjoyed them. But that Blockbuster experience doesn't really exist anymore. You know, you guys have been around since 1997. You've talked a little bit about this, but how is streaming and how has the technology changed what you guys do?
Well, it changes for everybody. All the studios and whatnot, and some are succeeding, but most aren't. And no one's really figured out a way to make it work, and that's the kind of difficulties that we're finding on our end. And that's why we have to change with what we do, because it's a tough one. You know, streaming kills the bottom line significantly. And so films that we might have made for $500,000 a year ago are being made for $250,000, you know, now, because we have to be able to make money on these films. Those kind of things. I mean, it's a tough one. We were just lamenting today about walking the wall, the Blockbuster wall, and how much fun that was, and how we do miss it. We're old, but you know, the world is streaming, and we have to figure that paradigm out, or else we will not be talking a year from now.
Well, what are there unique advantages, and I imagine unique disadvantages, you have to being the Asylum in this shift?
The advantage is that we're a branded company. People know our brand. The bad news is that we just know how to make movies, and we don't really necessarily know how to market our brand well. I think in order to really capture that audience, I think we have to work harder on that. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, if you have a subscriber like In Demand, and you had one of our titles on there, we used to be on the front page with the other Blockbusters. Now the studios came in and they kind of squeezed all the independents out. So if you wanted to know one of our movies, you have to go, you know, 12 pages in to find one of our titles, and you have to know our title, which is very difficult, which is why, you know, so that revenue dies. It just doesn't exist anymore for us. So it used to be an advantage because we got on the front page of these streaming services, but the studios are trying to vie for their own space. They kind of kicked us out. And yeah, it's a tough one. It's a big math problem we haven't figured out yet.
Do you guys have a dream project at the Asylum? Is there something you really want to do? Maybe a genre you haven't tackled yet, or a vision for a type of movie?
No. I know it's probably short-sighted, but it's like, we used to get the questions like, if you can make $100 million movie, would you do it? Or big theatrical. For me, I feel like I live on a day-to-day existence. And so if the opportunity came up, I wouldn't turn anything down, really. So it's one of those things, it has to be presented, and I go, oh, great, and get excited behind it. But there's not necessarily a long-term, like, hey, wouldn't this be great if we can just get there? Because I feel like a lot of my dreams on the bucket list have already been checked off. And I feel like it's a little bit too, I'm a bit too gluttonous if I ask for more, because it's been so good so far. I think, more TV series is always a good thing. I definitely want to be able to up the ante that way. And again, if we do theatrical, we do theatrical. If we don't. I'm not going to cry to anybody that, we ever went, big theatrical if it doesn't happen. But if we do, wonderful.
I love what you guys are doing. And I'm not a movie producer, but I think head down, keep doing what you're doing. Like, it seems like you guys keep moving it forward, and it seems like you're going to keep moving it forward. And I'm confident you will get there. I got to be honest. Like, I don't know that any of your movies are my favorite movies, but I've seen a bunch of them, and I didn't hate any of them. Like, I'll even go further than I didn't hate.
I'll take it.
I liked all of them. Like, I had a good time watching them. I've never watched an Asylum movie and not had a good time watching it. And I don't know. I've seen, like, much bigger, much more expensive movies that I did have a bad time watching that are no fun at all. And I haven't seen one of yours like that yet. So I think keep doing what you're doing, and I think you're going to get there.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. I'll take it. I'll take that compliment. It's all good.
David, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for, I think giving us a little background on the Asylum here, helping us enjoy the movies a little more, and just talking movies tonight.
Well, thank you.
Thus, we conclude another episode of the Jeff Rubin Show. Thank you, as always, for listening. If you want more, you can go to jeffrubinshow.com. You will find every episode of the show. You can sign up for a mailing list, get updates when new episodes come out. You will find links to all, not just one, not two, all of my social media profiles, including on Tumblr and Facebook and Twitter, and of course on YouTube, where I am for real releasing videos and streaming videos at youtube.com/JeffRubin. And I think that's it this week. All right, see you guys next episode. Bye.